covert narcissist is never truly finished with you. Their cruelty is not a single blow, but 1,000 subtle cuts delivered over time. When one method fails to break you, they will simply shift to another, always adapting, always refining their manipulation until you are left questioning everything you once believed to be true. The covert narcissist's brilliance lies in their persistence. They understand that control is not achieved through a single act of domination. It is earned slowly, through carefully planted doubts, through whispered accusations and veiled compliments. They break you down piece by piece until even your own thoughts are turned against you. Marcus Aurelius warned, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." But what happens when those thoughts have been poisoned by someone else's deceit? What happens when your mind has been reshaped not by your own reason, but by the calculated cruelty of another? You've already seen how they operate. The subtle manipulations, the twisting of your emotions, the rewriting of your reality. But the most devastating tactics are yet to come, because when their initial attempts fail, they escalate. They unleash their most refined, most vicious strategies. This is part 2. 5 more techniques. 5 more ways the covert narcissist attempts to dismantle your sanity, your peace, your very identity. And if you are not prepared, you will fall victim to them all. If you find these insights valuable, like, share, and subscribe to Victory Stoic. Let us know in the comments below if you have faced these tactics or triumphed over them. Your wisdom could be the key that helps someone else escape. Prepare yourself. The darkness only deepens from here. Let's begin. Number 6. Moral distortion technique. Twisting virtue into chains. Morality, when pure, is a compass. But in the hands of a covert narcissist, it becomes a weapon. Something meant to guide you twisted into something meant to bind you. They distort your own principles, your own ethics, until you no longer recognize what is right and what is wrong. You find yourself questioning your own values, wondering if perhaps they were right all along. Consider the story of Daniel Hayes, a successful architect from Chicago. Daniel had built his life on principles of loyalty, integrity, and dedication. He valued his marriage, his family, and his career above all else. But those values made him a perfect target for someone who thrived on manipulation. His business partner, Travis, was charismatic, clever, and utterly devoid of conscience. Travis had always been envious of Daniel's success, both professionally and personally. But rather than confronting Daniel directly, he chose a more insidious route: moral distortion. It began subtly. Travis would plant seeds of doubt under the guise of friendship. "You work so hard, Daniel. You deserve to enjoy yourself. It's not fair that your wife doesn't appreciate all you do for her." His voice was sympathetic, his words framed as concern. When Daniel confided in Travis about the strain his work was placing on his marriage, Travis was quick to offer advice. "Your wife is too focused on the kids. She neglects you, doesn't she? You're only human, Daniel. It's natural to want affection and appreciation." Travis began introducing Daniel to social events, filled with beautiful women who seemed to admire Daniel's success. And when Daniel hesitated, Travis would laugh. "Come on, Daniel. What's the harm? You're not doing anything wrong. You deserve to feel valued, to feel alive." The suggestion was simple. If Daniel's wife couldn't meet his needs, then seeking fulfillment elsewhere was not only acceptable, but justified. Travis twisted Daniel's own values of loyalty and integrity until they no longer held any meaning. If your wife truly loved you, she would be supporting you. If she's not, then that's her failure, not yours. What Travis was doing was not mere temptation. It was calculated manipulation, designed to erode Daniel's own sense of morality. Travis painted Daniel's own desires as virtues, encouraging him to abandon his principles under the pretense of self-care. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." But when someone deliberately twists your own understanding of goodness, the line between right and wrong becomes blurred. And that is precisely what the covert narcissist seeks, to distort your values until they can exploit them. Daniel eventually gave in. He began an affair with a woman Travis introduced him to, believing the lie that he deserved more than what his wife could offer. But the betrayal left him hollow, consumed by guilt. And Travis? Travis reveled in Daniel's downfall. Not only had he tarnished Daniel's personal life, but he had also solidified his own position of control within their business partnership. Psychologists call this tactic moral reframing, a manipulation technique where the abuser redefines ethical principles to suit their own agenda. According to Dr. George Simon, author of In Sheep's Clothing, Understanding and Dealing with Manipulative People, covert narcissists often exploit their victim's sense of morality by creating justifications that benefit themselves. By convincing Daniel that his actions were justified, Travis planted a virus within Daniel's own conscience. And once infected, it was only a matter of time before Daniel's integrity crumbled. It was only after his wife discovered the affair and left him that Daniel realized the depth of Travis's betrayal. Travis had not only manipulated Daniel's actions, but his very sense of right and wrong. What Daniel had once held sacred was now tainted, twisted into something unrecognizable. Seneca wrote, "Every guilty person is his own hangman." Daniel became his own executioner, driven by guilt and shame. But beneath the pain there was a lesson, a brutal, necessary truth. His morality had been manipulated, not because it was weak, but because it was strong. And that strength had been exploited by someone who sought to bend it to their own ends. Here's how you can protect yourself against the moral distortion technique. 1. Define your own morality. Write down your core principles: loyalty, integrity, compassion. Keep them close, revisit them often, and guard them as you would guard your own life. 2. Question motivations. When someone encourages you to violate your own principles, ask yourself who truly benefits. Are they supporting you, or are they using you? 3. Recognize manipulative justifications. Phrases like "you deserve it" or "it's not your fault" can be tools of distortion. Evaluate whether those statements align with your own values or simply serve someone else's agenda. 4. Hold yourself accountable. True integrity is not about never making mistakes. It is about recognizing them, correcting them, and striving to be better. Never allow another person's influence to dictate your own morality. Daniel's journey was painful, but it was not without redemption. He cut ties with Travis, rebuilt his marriage through honesty and effort, and recommitted himself to the principles he had once abandoned. His experience taught him a lesson the Stoics knew well. No man can force you to betray your own values. They can only convince you to do it yourself. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." Daniel reclaimed his own definition of goodness, free from the distortions others tried to impose upon him. The truth is harsh, but undeniable. When someone tries to manipulate your morals, their aim is not to help you. Their aim is to control you. And if you allow them to succeed, you will find yourself betraying not only your principles, but your very soul. The intelligent man understands that morality must be defined by his own conscience, not by the manipulative words of others. And once he claims that power, no one can take it from him. Number 7. Memory planting technique. The poison of false memories. Memory is fragile. It is not a fortress made of stone, but a garden of delicate flowers, easily trampled or distorted by deceit. And when a covert narcissist wishes to control you, they will target that garden, planting seeds of falsehood to make you question what is real. Consider the story of Andrew Sullivan, a marketing director from Boston. Brilliant, ambitious, and driven by creativity, Andrew excelled at his job. But his relationship with Jessica, his girlfriend of 3 years, had grown increasingly toxic. What Andrew failed to realize was that Jessica was not simply difficult. She was a master manipulator, skilled at crafting illusions. Jessica's preferred tactic was to rewrite history. Whenever Andrew tried to address her destructive behavior, she would twist the past to fit her own narrative. "You always do this, Andrew. You've always been selfish. Remember last year when I had to cancel my trip because of you?" The problem was, Andrew didn't remember it that way. The trip had been canceled because Jessica had fallen ill, but her insistence made him doubt his own memory. "Are you sure? You were so focused on your work, you barely paid attention to me," she would say, her voice so calm, so reasonable. Psychologists call this tactic memory implantation, a form of gaslighting where the abuser creates or alters memories to manipulate their victim. Dr. Elizabeth Loftus, a renowned cognitive psychologist, has conducted extensive research on the malleability of human memory. Her studies reveal that memories are not static recordings of the past, but are constantly reconstructed and reshaped by suggestion, influence, and emotion. Jessica exploited this vulnerability with precision. Over time, her false memories became truths in Andrew's mind. Every argument was reframed, every disagreement twisted to place blame squarely on his shoulders. When Andrew tried to defend himself, Jessica would shake her head sadly. "You always rewrite history to make yourself look good. Why can't you just admit you're wrong?" And so Andrew began to doubt himself, doubt his perceptions, doubt his own mind. Epictetus wrote, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." What the Stoics understood is that the mind's greatest strength is also its greatest weakness. When you allow another person to rewrite your own reality, you surrender your very essence to them. Jessica's manipulation did not end with rewriting the past. She began fabricating entire events, arguments that never occurred, promises Andrew had supposedly broken, offenses he had supposedly committed. And each time Andrew tried to refute her, Jessica would counter with chilling certainty. "You never listen to me. You never remember anything correctly. It's exhausting to be with someone who denies the truth." It was like being trapped in a hall of mirrors where every reflection was distorted. Andrew found himself apologizing for sins he had not committed, atoning for failures that were never his. The guilt became a constant presence, eroding his confidence, his joy, his clarity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." But Andrew's thoughts had been poisoned, tainted by Jessica's relentless manipulation. His mind had become a battleground where his own memories warred against the falsehoods Jessica planted. The turning point came when Andrew reconnected with an old friend, Sarah, who had known him before his relationship with Jessica. During a conversation about his struggles, Sarah asked a simple question. "Why do you always doubt yourself now? You used to be so confident, so sure of who you were." Those words cut through Andrew's fog like a knife. He realized that Jessica had not simply been arguing with him, she had been rewriting him. The person he had once been was buried under layers of fabricated guilt, twisted memories, and relentless manipulation. The Stoics believed in the power of rationality, of cutting away falsehood to reveal the truth beneath. As Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Andrew had been suffering under the weight of Jessica's illusions, believing himself to be the villain she painted him as. Here's how you can protect yourself against the memory planting technique. 1. Document reality. When conflicts arise, write down exactly what happened. Time, place, words spoken. Your own written records are a shield against manipulation. Memory may be fragile, but paper endures. 2. Verify with trusted sources. Reach out to those who were present during key events. Cross-check their recollections with your own. The truth is often more resilient than deception. 3. Recognize the manipulation. If someone constantly insists that your version of events is wrong, consider the possibility that they are planting false memories for their own benefit. 4. Reclaim your own narrative. Affirm what you know to be true. Repeat it, write it down, revisit it when doubt creeps in. Let your own words become the antidote to their poison. Andrew eventually confronted Jessica, armed with his own recollections, his own clarity. When Jessica tried to twist the past once more, he simply replied, "I remember what happened. Your words will not rewrite my reality." Jessica's power over him crumbled. The fortress she had built from deceit and distortion was nothing but sand. Andrew walked away from the relationship with scars, yes, but also with strength, because he understood that the truth was not something Jessica could take from him. It was something only he could surrender. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacle to our acting." Jessica's manipulation had been an obstacle, but it had also been a lesson. Andrew emerged stronger, more vigilant, more certain of his own reality. The memory planting technique is insidious because it preys upon your greatest vulnerability, your own mind. But once you reclaim that mind, once you refuse to allow another to rewrite your story, their power over you collapses. The intelligent man understands that memory is not perfect, but it is his, and no one else has the right to twist it to their own ends. Number 8, villainizing you, the art of blame reversal. True cruelty is not always violence or rage. Sometimes it is a whisper of accusation, a rewriting of history that leaves you questioning your own worth, your own integrity. When a covert narcissist cannot control you through praise or manipulation, they will resort to a more vicious tactic, making you the villain of the story. Consider the relationship of Samuel Gray, a 38-year-old financial consultant from New York City. Samuel had been dating Emily, a vibrant 24-year-old artist, for 3 years. Their relationship had begun passionately, driven by shared creativity and adventure. But as time went on, Samuel noticed subtle changes in Emily's behavior. She grew more demanding, more possessive, less willing to accept any boundaries he tried to establish. Whenever Samuel voiced his concerns about their differences, Emily would respond with tears and accusations. "You're so much older than me, Sam. You have everything figured out, but I'm just starting my life. You're supposed to guide me, protect me. If you leave, you'll destroy everything I could have been." The words struck Samuel like knives. He had always been aware of their age difference, but he had believed that their connection went beyond such superficial concerns. Now, Emily was turning that difference against him, framing him as a predator who had taken something precious from her. "I sacrificed so much for you, Sam. My youth, my dreams, and now you want to abandon me? You're just like everyone else, selfish, cold, incapable of love." Emily's tactic was clear. She was painting Samuel as the villain, the cruel and heartless man who had wasted her youth, stolen her potential, and left her with nothing. It didn't matter that their relationship had been built on mutual affection and shared goals. It didn't matter that Samuel had always encouraged Emily to pursue her own dreams, to develop her art and expand her horizons. No, in Emily's story, Samuel was the destroyer, the thief, the man who had betrayed her. The insidiousness of this tactic lies in its emotional impact. Samuel began to doubt himself, to question whether his desire for boundaries and personal growth was truly selfish. Maybe I am ruining her life. Maybe I owe her more than this. This is what the covert narcissist desires, to twist your own morality against you, to make you feel like your very existence is a crime. It is not enough for them to control you. They need you to believe that your pain is justified, that your suffering is deserved. Seneca once wrote, "What difference does it make how much you have? What you do not have amounts to much more." Emily made Samuel believe that by leaving her, he was taking away something irreplaceable, something he had never truly given her in the first place. Psychologists refer to this tactic as blame reversal or victimization manipulation. According to Dr. Ramani Durvasula, a leading expert on narcissistic abuse, covert narcissists often project their own flaws onto their victims, creating a narrative where the true victim becomes the villain. By framing themselves as helpless, innocent, or betrayed, they force their target into a position of guilt and obligation. Samuel's guilt grew like a cancer. He found himself making sacrifices he never intended, staying in a relationship that had long since become toxic. Emily's words haunted him. "You're destroying my life. You're abandoning me when I need you most." It wasn't until Samuel began studying Stoicism that he found clarity. He read Marcus Aurelius's words, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Samuel realized that Emily's accusations were not reflections of truth. They were weapons, designed to manipulate his own conscience. He saw that her pain, real or imagined, was not his responsibility. His mistake was not in leaving her. His mistake was in allowing her to dictate his own sense of morality. Here's how you can protect yourself against the villainizing technique. 1. Reclaim your own narrative. Write down your experiences as you remember them. Detail the events, your intentions, your efforts. When someone tries to rewrite your story, you will have your own truth to ground you. 2. Evaluate criticism objectively. Ask yourself if the accusations align with your values or actions. If not, reject them. You are not required to accept blame simply because someone hands it to you. 3. Detach from guilt-based manipulation. Understand that guilt is often a tool used to control you. Evaluate whether the guilt you feel is justified or manufactured by another's distorted narrative. 4. Seek objective perspective. Talk to trusted friends, family, or even therapists about your experiences. Sometimes an outside perspective can reveal manipulation you were too close to see. 5. Set boundaries without apology. Once you recognize that someone is trying to paint you as the villain, establish firm boundaries. Do not allow their distorted reality to invade your mind. Samuel finally broke free from Emily's manipulation. He ended the relationship, not with cruelty, but with clarity. He understood that her accusations were not reflections of his character, but projections of her own insecurity and desire for control. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." By reclaiming his own mind, Samuel reclaimed his own happiness. And when Emily tried to paint him as the villain once more, her words no longer held any power. The truth is harsh but liberating. When someone tries to make you feel like the villain, it is usually because they cannot face their own failures. The intelligent man understands that true morality is not dictated by the accusations of others. It is defined by his own integrity, his own conscience, his own truth. Number 9. Turning you into their weapon, manipulation through innocence. The most dangerous enemy is not the one who attacks you openly. It is the one who convinces you to strike on their behalf, to use your loyalty, your passion, your very sense of justice as tools for their own malicious game. And the most effective manipulation? Playing the victim. Meet Emily Grace, a social media influencer with over 1 million followers. Her platform was built on her charm, beauty, and relatability. But beneath the polished exterior, Emily was a master of manipulation. She thrived not by tearing others down herself, but by convincing her audience to do it for her. It started with a relationship. Emily had dated Michael, a software engineer who had never been interested in social media fame. Their relationship was tumultuous. Emily was controlling, demanding, but always framed her behavior as concern. "I'm just looking out for you, Michael. If you can't appreciate that, then maybe you don't really care about me." Michael tried to make things work, but Emily's expectations were never reasonable. If he failed to respond to her messages within minutes, she accused him of neglect. If he spent time with friends, she accused him of betrayal. And when he finally ended the relationship, it wasn't through anger or bitterness, it was through exhaustion. But Emily would not let him go that easily. She turned her pain into content. On a live stream watched by tens of thousands, Emily painted herself as the wounded heroine. "I trusted him. I gave him everything, and he just tossed me aside. Lied to me. Used me. I'm not saying this to gain sympathy. I just need to be honest with all of you. It's important to share our truth, even when it hurts." Tears glistened in her eyes. Her voice cracked with the perfect amount of vulnerability, and the audience believed her. Comments flooded in. "What a monster. How could he do that to you? You deserve so much better. Tell us who he is. We'll make sure he never hurts anyone again." Emily never directly encouraged her followers to attack Michael. She simply painted herself as the victim and allowed the outrage to flourish. Michael began receiving hateful messages, threats, even attempts to sabotage his professional reputation. All because Emily had framed him as a villain to a crowd thirsty for someone to blame. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." But Emily's revenge was not about truth or justice. It was about control. She had transformed her followers into weapons, directing their fury with a few carefully chosen words. Psychologists refer to this tactic as proxy manipulation, using others to carry out acts of aggression or retribution on one's behalf. According to Dr. Ramani Durvasula, a clinical psychologist specializing in narcissistic abuse, covert narcissists often employ this technique because it allows them to maintain the illusion of innocence. By framing themselves as the victim, they inspire loyalty and outrage from others, who then act as their instruments of cruelty. What made Emily's manipulation so effective was her mastery of appearance. By playing the victim, she appealed to her followers' empathy, and by allowing them to enact her revenge, she remained untouchable, her hands clean. Michael could have fought back. He could have exposed Emily's lies, revealed her manipulations for what they were, but he chose not to, because he understood a harsh, necessary truth. Trying to convince her audience of the truth would only entangle him further in her web. Instead, Michael chose to cut ties completely. He left social media, changed his phone number, and focused on rebuilding his life outside of Emily's reach. He understood that the only way to win her game was to refuse to play. The Stoics understood that reputation is not always something within your control. Epictetus wrote, "If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, 'He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone.'" The intelligent man knows that true character is not defined by the opinions of others, but by his own actions and integrity. Here's how you can protect yourself against the tactic of being turned into a weapon. 1. Question motivations. If someone portrays themselves as a victim while encouraging you to attack another, question their intentions. Are they seeking justice, or simply using you as a tool for revenge? 2. Avoid emotional reactivity. Covert narcissists thrive on stirring up anger and sympathy. Take a step back, evaluate the situation calmly, and do not let your emotions dictate your actions. 3. Refuse to be manipulated. Understand that true strength lies in your ability to resist manipulation. Refuse to be turned into a weapon, even by those you care about. 4. Maintain boundaries. If someone consistently uses their suffering as a justification to harm others, establish clear boundaries. Do not allow their pain to become your responsibility. 5. Seek the truth before acting. Always investigate the full story before taking sides. Manipulators often rely on partial truths to justify their actions. Michael's decision to leave Emily's world was not an act of cowardice, it was an act of wisdom. He understood that the only way to reclaim his peace was to detach himself entirely from her influence. His integrity became his shield. Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." Emily craved attention, validation, revenge, and that hunger drove her to manipulate her followers into doing her bidding. Michael, by contrast, sought nothing but his own peace of mind. And in the end, it was he who emerged victorious. The truth is brutal but clear. A covert narcissist will often seek to transform you into a weapon against others, masking their own cruelty behind a facade of victimhood. But the intelligent man recognizes the trap. He refuses to be wielded as a tool of destruction. And by reclaiming his own agency, he renders their manipulation powerless. Number 10. Shifting blame, turning guilt into a weapon. When a covert narcissist is confronted with their own wrongdoings, their first instinct is not to apologize or make amends. It is to turn the blame back onto you, to twist the truth until you are left doubting your own morality, your own decisions, your own sanity. This tactic is not just a defense mechanism, it is an offensive strategy meant to crush your will. Consider the case of Robert and Alice, a married couple living in Los Angeles. Robert was a software engineer, reliable and hardworking. Alice had always admired his dedication to his job, but their financial situation had become strained. To support the household and help pay off mounting debts, Alice took on 2 additional part-time jobs. Her days were long, her nights restless, but she believed that her sacrifices were necessary for their future. But Robert was not satisfied. He felt neglected, frustrated by Alice's absence. Instead of supporting her efforts, he sought validation elsewhere. His affair with a woman he met at the gym began as casual flirtation, but quickly escalated into something deeper. And when Alice discovered the truth, when she confronted Robert with the messages, the photos, the late-night calls, his response was as cold as it was calculated. "What did you expect, Alice? You were never here, always working, always exhausted. You practically pushed me into her arms. If you had just been there for me, none of this would have happened." The words stung like acid. Alice had sacrificed so much for their family, her time, her energy, her own well-being. But now Robert was framing her efforts as neglect, as if her dedication to their shared future was a crime, not a virtue. Psychologists call this tactic blame shifting, a manipulation technique where the abuser reframes the situation to place guilt on the victim. According to Dr. George Simon, author of In Sheep's Clothing, Understanding and Dealing with Manipulative People, blame shifting is a classic tool of narcissists and manipulators. It allows them to avoid accountability while simultaneously making their victim question their own actions and motivations. Robert's tactic was simple but devastating. By making Alice feel guilty for his betrayal, he distorted her own sense of morality. And the worst part? Alice began to believe him. Maybe I was working too much. Maybe I should have been more present. Maybe this really is my fault. This is the poison of blame shifting. It corrupts your own conscience, making you feel responsible for someone else's deliberate cruelty. It makes you feel that your pain is justified, that your suffering is deserved. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Reject your sense of injury, and the injury itself disappears." But how can you reject a wound when it has been planted so deeply within your own mind? When the person you trusted most has convinced you that you are the true villain. Alice's torment continued for months. Robert would alternately apologize and accuse, vacillating between promises of change and bitter recriminations. Every time Alice tried to assert herself to reclaim her own dignity, Robert would twist the conversation back onto her supposed failures. "If you really loved me, you would have been there for me. You would have made me feel appreciated. This is all happening because of you, Alice." The irony was brutal. Alice had taken on extra work to support Robert, to build a better future for them both, and yet he had turned her own efforts into weapons against her. The Stoics understood that blame is often wielded as a tool of control. Seneca wrote, "It is the power of the mind to be unconquerable when fortified with reason." But Alice's reason had been eroded by Robert's manipulation, leaving her vulnerable and confused. Eventually, Alice sought the guidance of a therapist who helped her recognize the truth. Robert's betrayal was not her fault. His infidelity was not a consequence of her hard work, but of his own selfishness. It was a difficult realization, but an essential one. Here's how you can protect yourself against the tactic of shifting blame. 1. Recognize the pattern. Blame shifting often follows a predictable pattern. When confronted, the manipulator will deflect responsibility and frame the conversation in a way that makes you feel guilty. Recognizing this pattern is the first step toward breaking free. 2. Refuse to accept unwarranted guilt. Remind yourself of your own truth. Write down your actions, your intentions, your efforts. When someone tries to rewrite your reality, compare their accusations to your own recorded experiences. 3. Set clear boundaries. Do not allow the manipulator to control the narrative. Refuse to accept blame for actions that were never yours. Stand firm in your own integrity. 4. Seek objective perspective. Speak to trusted friends, family, or professionals who can help you see through the distortion. An outside perspective can be a lifeline when your own sense of reality has been undermined. 5. Detach emotionally. The Stoics taught that emotions are often the enemy of clarity. As Epictetus wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Take a step back. Evaluate the situation with reason, not emotion. Alice eventually found the strength to leave Robert. She realized that his accusations were not reflections of her own failures, but projections of his own guilt. By reclaiming her own narrative, Alice reclaimed her own power. Robert's tactic of blame shifting was never about truth. It was about control, about bending Alice's conscience until she became her own enemy. But Alice learned the lesson that all intelligent people must eventually confront. You are not responsible for another person's cruelty. You are not required to bear the weight of their sins. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." Once Alice severed the ties of guilt Robert had woven around her, her thoughts became her own again. And in that clarity, she found peace. The truth is brutal but liberating. A covert narcissist will always seek to make you feel responsible for their transgressions. They will paint you as the villain, even when they are the ones who have committed the crime. But the intelligent man or woman understands that true morality cannot be dictated by the twisted words of others. It must be built upon the solid foundation of your own integrity. And once you reclaim that integrity, their power over you crumbles to dust. Conclusion. The most terrifying truth about covert narcissists is that their cruelty evolves. They adapt. They refine their methods until they find the perfect way to break you. And unlike open enemies, their attacks are shrouded in kindness, concern, and false affection. You may not even realize you are being destroyed until you are already on your knees. In part 2, we have exposed 5 more of their most devastating tactics. They twist morality to manipulate your conscience. They project their own flaws onto you until you believe you are the villain. They use your own guilt against you, shifting blame until you feel responsible for their cruelty. They transform your own mind into a battlefield, distorting your sense of reality until you cannot distinguish truth from lies. And worst of all, they turn you into a weapon, using your own compassion, loyalty, and desire to protect against the very people who care for you. If you recognize these techniques, know this: it is not your fault. Covert narcissists thrive on confusion, on chaos, on the disarray of your own thoughts. They leave you tangled, afraid, doubting everything you once trusted. But even in the darkest of nights, the Stoics teach us that the mind can be reclaimed. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The most important lesson you must take away from this exploration is that you are not helpless. Your mind is yours to master. And once you recognize the manipulation, you can break free from it. These 10 tactics are not just strategies of cruelty. They are also tools of enlightenment. By understanding how covert narcissists operate, you gain the power to defend yourself. You gain the clarity to see through their deceit and reclaim the peace they tried to steal from you. If this video has given you the insight you need to reclaim your mind, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Victory Stoic. Your support spreads this wisdom and helps others break free from the chains of manipulation. Comment below with the phrase, "I reclaim my mind," or share your own story of overcoming narcissistic manipulation. Your strength may inspire someone else to escape the darkness. Thank you for watching. Stay vigilant, and remember, true strength begins in the mind.